outhouse metal too. Installing that window. It's a little stick bug on the window. So installing this one and this one and these metals and quad vertical seams on these outside windows. Gave the quad and this some drip edge for the outside corner. Before doing this, spray foamed in each of these little things, bump outs, so that it could expand and fill the voids behind us. Nice and solid, and there should be no bugs getting in there, you know. Did this. This is a 48-inch roll, biggest I had at Lowe's. So with a 112. Well, never mind. That sits like that. But anyways, though, with the 112, it's gonna be like a minor gap, you know, like that. So no real point in doing a bird's mouth. And that's kind of the nice thing about a 112. And then I'll just take some 1x4 and butt it up, you know. So that 1x4 will fill this gap back of the rafters and cover this, you know. They'll give it some more staples. Bottom will get some drip edge, you know. I just needed to put this in, the screen in, so I could do, you know, the drip edge over here and then the siding. If you're looking for Metal 1, House Metal 1, YouTube deleted it, and you know, there's been this delay because YouTube made it put me on a delay or something, you know, where I can't post videos for a week. And it took a week just to even see that, you know. So it's like 2 weeks, you know. They deleted it an hour after I uploaded it, you know. So I will be putting Outhouse Metal 1 on Rumble. I'm starting up a Rumble thing, you know, and I'll be I'm backlogged, you know. All my videos from 2023 up, I'm putting onto Rumble, which is kind of this series of projects, you know. The old stuff like grading this, you know, and felling the trees and building the bunker and all that. It's just too many videos to try putting onto Rumble anytime soon, so holding off on that. But in Metal 1 though, I did the roof. This piece of metal, this piece gets a flare for, you know, when I'm doing this roof. And then I installed these 3 windows, these outside windows, you know, and this trim, you know. This is drip edge I've kind of folded into head flashing. So I start, you know, doing the bottom head flashing so that the water goes down and then, whoops, you know, goes into there, you know, and then from there it can just flow out. So in part 1, I did these 3 windows and the roof, and this off camera I did nice assassin bug. And we get some big ones down here. That's a big one right here. Kind of see he's like an inch long. And it's a 2x4, you know, 2x4 is 1.5 inches. He's almost, you know, as big as a 2x4. It's probably not gonna want to catch. Nice and dry on the roof. I'm gonna caulk the seams on the roof. Sometimes some little things. So this is 10 by 10, you know, so it's just barely got an overlap, you know, so you can see some light. So I'm gonna go ahead and caulk those. With the warehouse garage, that's 19 by 29, so it gives me another 6 inches. are, 6 inches. That gives me a foot to play with, rather than being exact. When it's exact, you can't do a double thing, double corrugated overlap. So YouTube deleted Metal One because it was talking about a lawsuit. I think it's Grace's dad, suing the actual doctors and administrators that, put in, under whose care and supervision his daughter was ended. I'll say it that way. And, I'm guessing YouTube doesn't want people to start suing individual doctors, because what his case is doing is going around suing the hospital itself, and is going after the individual doctors and administrators. And it's like, normally there's no financial incentive for a lawyer to do the suit, because it costs them more to go through the process than it does that they can make from it. So there's no financial incentive for a lawyer to sue the hospital for malpractice. And sometimes there is, and when there is, the hospitals just have insurance that covers their malpractice suits. So there's no incentive for the hospital to the administration to be ethical. And really, they've just become all corrupt and greedy. But this one is suing the individual doctors, so it's setting a precedent, which I'm guessing no one wants to, YouTube doesn't want people to know about, because it'll catch like wildfire. I don't know anyone that died from Fauci's flu, but I do know someone that died from the hospital malpractice, the ventilator specifically, which this, was part of the lawsuit, ventilators, and there's like 600,000 that a hospital can make using these financial incentives that Fauci put in place, for all the different treatments for his flu, one of them being the ventilator. So those ventilators were just pushed even though they weren't necessary, and people weren't trained on them, how to use them and get people off of them. So I don't know anyone that died from the flu, but I do know someone that died from the ventilators, malpractice. But of course, being a corrupt system, it never went to, there was no malpractice suit, because there's just no financial way of doing it, unless you're there in court being your own lawyer, So that was why it got taken down, because that's, I guess forbidden knowledge. You're not supposed to know that. It's end times though, so this audio is just about end times, and being end times doesn't really matter. There is no reforming the system, getting rid of the corrupt administration in hospitals and in other things, the government. But so there's no real point, It's not like when a problem is identified. If this were, and I say it's end times, because if it weren't end times, when you identify that there's a problem, you change the situations around that problem to address it, to keep that problem from coming up again, So in that world, where it's not end times, when you see, this financial system, and this insurance system just allows these hospital administrations to become corrupt, greedy bastards that just go around ending people's lives because it's financially better for them, they would change those systems to hold those administrations accountable. But in the end times world, which we do live in, when that becomes apparent, when it becomes known to all, they've been trying to hide it, but when it's finally just so glaringly obvious that people can see it, they try to quell it, they keep you silenced from talking about it and spreading it and sharing it, That's how you know it's end times, because that's what they're doing, rather than addressing the situation to fix it, they're just quelling it, they're banning videos that mention a lawsuit, So that was number one, and that'll be on Rumble, and maybe I'll be caught up to it, maybe in a month or two, but you can look up probably Grace's dad, and see the lawsuit going on, for more information on it. And it was on AFR, the Todd Herman show, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something. So, you know, maybe like early November, you know. So I'm guessing, you know, on AFR, you can, on their website, you can see that you can look up all the different programs. If you look up the Todd Herman one, you know, you'll see the titles. I'm guessing the title for that particular episode makes it kind of obvious which episode it is. But it'll be on Rumble in a few months. And I'm sure Rumble isn't as crooked as YouTube, you know, and they'll allow it to stay up. Anyways, that was Metal 1, doing these 3 windows and the roof, and then Metal 2 doing this and the siding, and then these 3 non-wet windows, you know. And that's kind of how far I've gotten on the concrete. That's ready to pull. I'll be pulling that today, assuming, you know, it's wet from light drizzle. Nice and dry. I like it. So next bit of concrete, we'll be doing this so that this has time to cure before I do that. So once this is done, I'm gonna add some more footers up top, because I've redesigned the garage for some additional supports for the floor. Carrying water, you know, water is like 8 1/3 pounds per gallon, you know, and I want, what do I want? 5 by 5, 25 barrels, 50 gallons each. So it adds up to, you know, several tons probably. I can't remember, you know, I can't do that kind of math these days. I get too much brain plaques going on to do math like that. But so I figure I'm gonna add some footers over there just in case, you know, not necessarily to use now, but if I do develop a sag on the floor from all the water weight, I can always just brace it, you know, and I'll have a footer, you know, right where it needs to be, you know, to bear that load. And it just makes doing the floor better, you know. The subfloor up there will be a lot easier with this. Those videos will probably be on Rumble. You know, I'll probably be caught up on Rumble and stop posting to this YouTube channel by the time I'm doing that. So I'll probably be doing that on Rumble, I'm guessing. It'll probably take, you know, another month or so to wrap up everything out here. Next video, if it doesn't get banned, will probably be running Utilities 3. Doing Utilities 3. Because it's going to be rainy like this today and rainy like this tomorrow. So I might as well do some utilities and the dry stuff, you know. I really don't want to do concrete in the rain. In case if it decides to downpour, you know, mild rain like this, I'd be okay doing concrete in. But if it does downpour, that could ruin the concrete. So I'm going to hold off on concrete and just do some. Next one of the Utilities 3, running the power and the water. Yeah, one thing I realized after the fact is there's really no room for it's the money shot right there. Wait, no, that's a leaf. There it is. Yeah, that leaf is right around the height that the game trail's on, though. That's about the right height. You know, there's the can. And that's the where they walk. So I'm gonna mount the box right here, right under this ledge. You know, this would be kind of the what do you call that thing? Desk, you know. Kind of see how, you know, the thoroughfare. The nice little lounge for reading. So right now I do videos. I watch videos because there's still power. But kind of like Tucker said, the obvious thing for, you know, an attacker to do as a digital nation is EMP. So I don't really have a whole lot of EMP protections just yet, you know. This next time out in town, you know, I'll start doing some more EMP protections. And basically what I'll be doing there is, you know, like a spare laptop, spare thing. If it's still in the box, wrap that box in tinfoil. Take that tinfoil wrapped box, put it in a like a metal Galvy garbage can, you know. Put the lid on, and then wrap that seam with maybe a foil tape and tinfoil, and then just, you know, leaving it in there for, you know, basically forever, you know, until there's an EMP, you know, and I need to get those items out. And those items would be like a DVD player, laptop, walkie-talkies. So, you know, another prep I'll be doing is, so I'm getting to the point now where I'm pretty well situated to support myself out here, end times wise, you know. Assuming there's no power, I won't be watching videos, but I can just be out here reading, you know. So I will be getting some books, you know. I got a handful of books and magazines to read, you know. There's a lot of nice natural light to read on, you know, and then there will be the overhead light. But also I'll be able to take in other people that aren't doing the mark of the beast, you know. When you got a buyer, we need the mark of the beast to buy or sell, which I'm guessing most people can probably see that the mark of the beast is coming pretty quick. I think it's going to be this next presidency, you know. Whoever becomes president, you know, under their watch, you know, in this 2024, after 2024 election, you know, the 2024 to 2028 definitely seems like when BRICS will be up and running, you know, their alternative currency, and ours will just be so shot from all of this spending, you know. People like me, working class people that can't afford stock markets or who disagree with stock markets, they're paying for all this, you know. It's like Biden prints all this money or just digitizes it, you know, and then you get the inflations, you know. And one figure was that it costs $13,000 a year more now than it did when Biden took office or something. And that's like an official number, which, you know, is on the low end. It costs a lot more, you know. Like when he took office, it was maybe $1.50 for a McDouble. Now it's like close to $4, I think, for a McDouble, you know. I can't even afford to go to McDonald's or Little Caesars anymore. It's just too expensive, you know. It's kind of, it'd be nice, but it's just not worth it. But, you know, so the people that can't afford to put their things in these, they're really, the stock market is just a Ponzi scheme, you know, if you haven't figured that one out yet, you know. It's no longer the company having that value of their stock. It's just people putting it in, you know, considering it a placeholder, you know, and that placeholder becomes more valuable just because more people are putting money into it, you know. There's a growing people, you know, their 401ks, you know, are being dumped into this Ponzi scheme. If you were to stop doing that, the stock market would just collapse, you know, because there is no growing value there. It's a stagnated value, you know, very minimal growing. Anyways, though, like the people during the COVID whole thing, you know, like having to, you know, work at the grocery store or work at Walmart, they're making very little money. The money they do make kind of covers their cost of living. So over the course of 2 years, you know, since Biden took office, or 3 years, what do you call it? They probably wouldn't have even saved $13,000. You know, like it's just, you know, money in, money out, trying to maintain the cost of living. So basically, if you believed in any of that whole, you know, COVID hysteria, and you shouldn't have even gone to the grocery stores, and you should have been picketing, you know, demanding that the grocery store shut down because you're putting those store clerks' lives at risk. But no one cared at all about those store clerks, even though that they believed that the, you know, COVID virus was deadly, you know. And it's like, so what did those store clerks, you know, because some of those store clerks probably believed, you know, that they were like facing life and death every day that they went into work, you know. And they went into work, you know, despite that, you know, they face their own deaths every day doing some crappy work, you know. And it's like, the little bit that they could have saved, like maybe $100 a month they were able to put away, Biden has just taken it, with all this inflation. He's writing these spending bills, that's taking the money from those people. It's disgusting. And really, there ought to be reparations for all of these low-wage workers, the essential workers. That's what they were called, essential workers, who couldn't just work from home, or just got paid to not work, but the ones that were out there working, like doing, maintenance and restoration, water damage restoration, those are essential workers, I had to do a big pay cut, because there are all these laid off people, applying for a crappy job that pays $12 an hour. Here I am, close to 20 years experience as a carpenter. And it's like, I'm lucky to get an interview for a $12 an hour apartment maintenance job, where it's all of these illegal immigrants that can't speak English. So you got to go around with your cell phone and have a, translation app to even do it, and that's just $12 an hour, and there were like 200 applicants for that job because it's just ate up. So I mean, people like that should be getting reparations. Anyways, it's end times. Kind of see right there, the galvy gets tucked under the drip edge. The drip edge is tucked under the window. That allows for the water to flow out. That's what you call a functional system, and the society is not a functional system. It's dysfunctional. Yeah, that's it for this will be this video, doing these three and the siding on those two sides. Metal 2.
Some are saying life as we knew it changed on October 7th, 2023. What does that mean?
Remember, it must have been about 8-9 years ago, the Ayatollah of Iran wrote a book, and it said, we will annihilate Israel in 25 years. If history has taught us anything, it's when a madman speaks, you listen. Welcome to Understanding the Times Radio with Jan Markell, radio for the remnant, brought to you by Olive Tree Ministries. Today, Jan spends the hour with Michelle Bachman. The mass slaughter on October 7th in southern Israel affected far more than Israeli society. A demonic spirit was unleashed that day upon the whole world. We hope the discussion this hour is informative and a reminder that the church age is wrapping up. The time of Jacob's trouble is on the horizon. Now, here is today's uninterrupted programming.
Globally, I want to address this moment of peril for the Jewish people worldwide, as we witness a disturbing spike in anti-Semitic hate speech and even instances of violence against Jews and Israelis following the October 7th massacre. Today, the National Security Council and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out an unusual global travel warning. We are calling on all citizens of Israel to exercise heightened caution when traveling anywhere abroad. We know that Jewish communities and their institutions, Israeli diplomatic missions and airports handling flights to and from Israel are targets for anti-Semites and violent anti-Semites. The National Security Council is urging all Israelis to consider whether any foreign travel anywhere in the world is necessary at this dangerous moment. Citizens planning to travel to countries with specific travel warnings are asked to postpone their visits, and we emphasize Arab and Middle Eastern states, the Northern Caucasus, and countries bordering Iran. We are also asking citizens, and truly I cannot believe that we are doing this, we are asking all citizens to avoid displaying any outward signs of their Israeli or Jewish identity anywhere in the world. If you must travel, please make sure that you have the numbers of emergency services and the local Israeli embassies on speed dial. Keep away from the anti-Israel pro-jihad protests and remain alert and vigilant about your surroundings at all times.
Welcome to the program. So glad you could join me for the hour. We now have seen 6 weeks of war in the Mideast, nations of the world aligning on one side or another, Jews hiding in hundreds of cities around the world, global leaders either denouncing God's covenant land or standing with it. calls for a ceasefire, hostage talks, and so much more. Many of us would start biblically, and certainly from the angle of eschatology or Bible prophecy. It has been analyzed politically. The topic as I speak is splitting churches. No surprise, as many will not take a side. Imagine a church that can thank the Jews for their Bible, for their Messiah, for the prophets of old, for the apostles, and more, that will not stand up for Israel at her greatest hour of need since the Holocaust. But there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of them in the Western world silent. I am hearing from more and more people every day, and I have addressed this in the last month. Today we will hear from a program favorite, Michelle Bachman. Michelle actually went to Kibbutz Be'eri right after high school. She has been a longtime friend of Israel while serving in the Minnesota legislature and the U.S. House of Representatives. Since her departure from the House in 2015, she has been an outspoken advocate for Israel, before that as well. She also is one of the leaders of the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast. Michelle and I have worked together for many years. We both headquarter out of the Twin Cities. Although currently, Michelle Bachman is Dean of the Robertson School of Government at Regent University. We have a lot to talk about, limited time. The program's uninterrupted. Michelle, welcome back to the program.
So great to be with you. Thanks, Jan.
Michelle, I'm just intrigued. You were serving in Kibbutz Be'eri. That was the one that was ground zero for Hamas. I was actually a tourist in 1974. You were there at Be'eri. Your thoughts when you heard what had happened in ground zero, your former kibbutz? I know you were in France at the time.
It was absolutely devastating. I got a call that morning from a friend who told me what happened in the south of Israel, and it was my kibbutz. That's where I lived. That's where I worked. I worked in the fields picking weeds. We go out at 3:30 in the morning, come back at noon, and then start cleaning the dining room. So it wasn't glamorous work, but that's the work that we did. So we also befriended people who lived at the kibbutz. For people who don't know what a kibbutz is, it's a village where Jewish people live, but they're committed for life to live there. And it usually centers around the occupation. Be'eri had a printing plant, but they also had agriculture, and their agriculture products have changed over the years. But of course, there were families. So Kibbutz Be'eri is a fairly large kibbutz, about 1,100 people today. I don't know if it was exactly that large back then, but during each day, one of my girlfriends and I would go over to the school where the children were educated, and we would just visit with the kids because they were learning to speak English. And so we had great relationships with those kids. So if you figure that was back in 1974, those kids would probably be not only adults, they might even possibly have been grandparents, because people lived there for their whole life. I went back in 2016 and I revisited Kibbutz Be'eri and had a marvelous experience, and I went to the dining room again to sit with the little kids. They were like 4 and 5 years old. And so when this happened, this slaughter, I had pictures of when I was visiting with those kids in the dining room. And I was just broken and struck because they suffered such utter devastation, a bloodbath at Kibbutz Be'eri. And those kids that I was eating with, I wondered, how many are still alive? How many lost their parents? How many lost their brothers and sisters? How many were there for that moment? Because those kids would have been about 12 years old. And we know that many of the people in Be'eri were taken as hostages. They were on the little dirt bikes, and they were brought across the border because Be'eri is only 3 miles from the Gaza border. So they were an easy target, and they suffered utter devastation. If you look at it, it looks like a scene from World War II. It was bombed out, fired upon, and the devastation, the blood is everywhere. So I can't tell you how long it took me to deal with that and process what had happened to the people who were living there.
When America is weak, it causes global catastrophes. And you and I were sharing a platform in August, might have been September of 2021 at Jack Hibbs Church, and we had the Afghanistan catastrophe of weeks earlier. And we were saying at that time publicly, a weak America has caused a catastrophe in Afghanistan, and now it's happened again, of course, in the Middle East, which is just tragic that we have to be observing our instability in Washington.
That's true, because we all remember when Joe Biden pulled the United States out of Afghanistan, he left the biggest military disaster we'd ever seen, where he left about $85 billion worth of the finest equipment military use known to man on the desert floor. And he left the most strategic air base that is only about an hour away from China. It's Bagram Air Base. I'd been there multiple times as a member of Congress when I was on various trips. I was just shocked at what Joe Biden had done. And so he sent a signal purposely to the world that we had abandoned our allies. We weren't in there only the United States and Afghanistan. We had coalition partners. So there were Australians there, people from Canada. I mean, all these other countries were there working with the United States on this Afghanistan project. But we pulled out and we didn't even tell our allies. It is literally the worst pullout I've ever seen. But my opinion is that was done by design. It was meant to anger our allies and set on fire our enemies, and then demonstrate to the world that we are led by people in the United States that don't know what time of day it is. That's literally the signal that was supposed to be sent. The people who want these outcomes, they want to have a Joe Biden as president, someone who clearly isn't in charge, who's causing destruction everywhere he goes. And so what that does is set the table. So you and I were at Jack Hibbs' church at an event, and he allowed me to have a few minutes up on stage, and that was the burden that God had put on my heart, that people needed to reconcile and understand that every day of our life when we grew up, we knew when we woke up in the morning, we lived in the greatest military and economic superpower on earth. Therefore, we had options. Therefore, we had a different standard of living. But what's happened, I don't say this to be partisan, what happened under Joe Biden, when he pulled out of Afghanistan, what he showed the world is that the United States of America is no longer the military superpower on earth, but the true fact is we're no longer the economic superpower on earth. And so the enemies across the world have gauged that, and they laid out their plans. The estimates are this current devastation took about 2 years to plan. That takes you back to Afghanistan.
That's exactly right. Michelle, you have talked extensively, I have too, about Middle East conflict here forever. And we both have pointed out that the root seems to be the indoctrination of children over there, as young as 2 and 3 years old. And I'm just playing a quick clip. It happens to be you. You give a short history here going back to 2005, and then you talk about their little children. Sesame Street in that part of the world is what's producing what we're seeing today.
But in 2005, Israel gave the people of Gaza in 2005, gave them lock, stock, and barrel Gaza. It's yours. Clear. Have a nice life. Leave us alone. On the way out, as the Jews were leaving, literally the people of Gaza were shooting Jews in the back as they left their homes, they left their businesses, and so too it has continued to this day. This isn't just October 7th. This is almost every day for the life of Jews in Israel. Somebody's getting stabbed by a Palestinian. Someone gets shot by a Palestinian. Someone gets run over in a car by a Palestinian. Because there is this fervent hatred for the Jews. How do I know that? As a member of Congress, I read the textbooks that were being taught to the Arab children in Gaza and in the Palestinian Authority. The head of the Palestinian Authority. I took over an envelope. I sat around. We gave that up a long time ago. Oh, really? I gave him the pages. These are your current textbooks that you're using. Also, they have PBS effectively in those areas, and their children have a Sesame Street. And on this show, I've seen it myself, little 3-year-olds with checkered scarves around their heads. Teach this to their children, the neighbors that are surrounding Israel. And so what we saw happen on Saturday, October 7th, is a fulfillment of the Charter of Gaza, is a fulfillment of what parents have been teaching their children in Gaza, in the Palestinian Authority, in the areas controlled by Hezbollah. But more than anything else, this demonic, bloody, brutal action that happened on October 7th is a fulfillment of the satanic, demonic promise of Satan that he is going to conquer God. He will not conquer God. He will not defeat God's covenant people. He will not defeat God's plan, because God's strong right arm will have the final say. Read the book of Revelation. He will win and be victorious.
Appreciated your comments there, Michelle. You want to follow up with any comment?
I think the central piece that we should understand from that is that God's covenant is what is at stake right now. Satan is at war. These are the last days, the end times. And Satan knows that his time is short. But yet, isn't it interesting? He will not give up on what he began in the Garden of Eden, the destruction of man. And the covenant that God gave to Abraham was the redemption of mankind, bringing all people on earth back to himself. Satan hates that, because Satan was so jealous. He wanted to be God. He hated God because he wanted to be God. We see evidence of that today. He's still trying to destroy the covenant. He won't succeed, but he's leaving a wide path of carnage. And so what these parents in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority are doing, it's real. I've seen it firsthand myself. They're brainwashing their children to hate Jews. That's the number one industry in Gaza. We're all told that these Palestinians are nice people. It's just that Hamas is bad. Well, there's been polling data, and the people living in Gaza hate Jews and agree with what Hamas has been doing.
Michelle, you and I have stated publicly that the world changed on October 7th. It'll probably never quite be the same again. We both agree that some sort of a spirit was unleashed on that day. Obviously, it's been active for centuries, certainly the last 100 years. And then something terrible was unleashed on that particular day, which I think is what we mean when we say that the world changed. But give me your perspective here, because I want my audience to hear your perspective on the eternal consequences of what happened that day.
I woke up in Paris. I was headed back to the United States, and I got a call from southern Israel telling me what had happened. And three things happened, Jan. I had a punch to my gut. I literally felt it, that this was different than any other attack. And then the next thing that happened is that I sensed that a spirit had been unleashed upon the earth. A spirit of death, satanic spirit had been unleashed. And then the third thing is that the hinge of history is turned, and there's no going back. We're in a different chapter. And that's when I thought, this is end time prophetic linked, because we're moving into not only just the intensity and the frequency of the birth pangs, chapter of these last days. That's why I believe that an evil that we have never experienced before has been unleashed upon the earth. And that's why we need to be aware. We've seen it in these 6 weeks since October 7th. We've felt the tension in our spirits. We have seen these actions, the protesters out on the street, people literally getting killed. And what are they doing? They are demanding and they're applauding a Holocaust against the Jewish people. So this isn't 75 years ago in a Warsaw ghetto. This is today, but it's every bit as much that same spirit seeking who to devour, who to kill, who's Jewish. So this is an irrational, unnatural hatred, and that's how you know it's satanic, because Satan is trying to destroy God's covenant people, because he's trying to destroy the covenant. And there's a saying among the Arab people who engage in this terrorism. They say, we're going to go after the Saturday people first, the Jews, then the Sunday people, the Christians. And so we should delude ourselves into thinking that this is only about killing Jews. This is about killing Christians. This is about killing even Muslims who don't agree with Hamas. That's their goal. It's utterly depraved.
I think some people are shocked at the outrage coming from our college campuses. Clearly unsafe for those who differ with the radical left, starting with the Jews. 100 years of agitation on our campuses, I think, has borne a lot of fruit. But nonetheless, Michelle, I think this was hidden until October 7th, and I think the most shocking element to everyone in the free world has been the unleashing of campus hate that we never thought was possible. We have Jewish students hiding in closets, in cafeterias, hiding anywhere they can on our college campuses. And much of the world is laughing, thinking this is kind of a funny drama to watch. Give me your thoughts on this.
Well, it is a belief system, again. Just to give you an example, there's polling data that was done in Gaza. Anywhere from 80 to 90% agree with what Hamas did. The same is true in the Palestinian Authority, Judea Samaria. But also polling data was done in America of American Muslims. So this is not Islamophobic for me to say this. What I'm giving you is polling data of American Muslims. 57% agreed with what Hamas did. Now, remember, before the year 2000, there was a de minimis population of Muslims living in the United States. We didn't have a lot of problems with Muslims living in the United States. We had the World Trade bombing in 1993 with the coal bombing. So there were some Muslims here. There had been terrorist acts that were vile and terrible. But we didn't see this level of protest. What's happened is we've had massive immigration of Islamic fundamentalists, Islamic supremacists who believe that Islam must dominate. They've brought that deadly hatred into the United States, and they have an agenda. They intend to conquer the United States for Islam. On college campuses, what you're seeing is something we didn't have before. We didn't have an Islamic population in these level of numbers, but this is the fruit of this unbridled immigration. Isn't it interesting? These young kids who come from around the world to the United States where they have an opportunity to get a first-class education and live in the United States of America and build themselves up into a career, what do they want more than anything? It's a bloodlust hatred to kill Jews. And the dirty secret is to kill us. They are audacious. They're arrogant. I've seen it. I've interacted with them because they come with the belief they're going to win. So when we don't push back and force them to have to abide by our laws, if people remember the protest in front of the White House when they took red hands and put it all over the White House gate, they were scaling the gates. The guards did nothing. They were defacing even the White House public property. The guards did nothing. When we do nothing and allow these people to get away with this in public, all this means is we're going to have more of it, and they are winning. So we've got to get a brain and make sure that we uphold our standards in the United States. Wherever you come from in the world, you need to abide by our laws.
If you join me late or listening to Understanding the Times Radio, I'm Jan Markell. I have with me for the hour a familiar voice of Michelle Bachmann. She served Minnesota's 6th District from 2007 to 2015. And by the way, she's currently the Dean of the Robertson School of Government, and that would be at Regent University in Virginia. Just a couple of quick comments. Saturday, November 18th is the Pastor Brandon Holthouse Conference, The Truth About Israel in Bakersfield, California. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Go to rockharborchurch.net. Sign up for the live stream. Brandon Holthouse, Billy Crone, Tom Hughes, David Tall, Bill Koenig, and Olivier Melnick, rockharborchurch.net. Small live stream cost, but all proceeds go to the needs in Israel. Again, Saturday, November 18th, 9 to 5 Pacific Time in Bakersfield. And say, Olive Tree wants to help you become a watchman on the wall in these dark times. Check out our website, olivetreeviews.org, for articles updated hourly. You can also sign up for our e-newsletter, which is a couple times a month, and our print quarterly magazine. And in these times, it's nice to talk to other believers and be encouraged by them. Check out our social media, Truth Social, Facebook, Gab, Twitter or X, Telegram, and Instagram. Michelle, I was listening to Melanie Phillips, and she was addressing our topic for the hour is the crisis in the Mideast and how that's affecting literally the whole world and the church, by the way. She's addressing the kumbaya of the left. Obviously, the Democrats, anybody on the left, has wanted to appease. There's a kumbaya mindset within them, and we can all get along with just everybody. Well, no, we can't. Let me play a quick clip of Melanie, and then come back and talk about it.
We can all see the Biden administration has sent an enormous amount of firepower into the Middle East, for which Israel is extremely grateful. We can see it's already been in some limited action. But I'm afraid to say among Israelis, the signals are considered very ambiguous. Is the American fleet there to protect us, Israelis are asking, or is it there to stop us? Is it there to say to Iran, we're here, so don't do anything, and to say to Israel, we're here, so we're protecting you, so don't do anything in Iran. Which is it? We don't know in Israel. We don't know because the administration is still undermining Israel's right to defend itself.